Hey guys, this is Neek and Rest, and this is She Wolf Alchemy. Today we're going to be talking about sacrificial lamb. In other words, sacrificing yourself for romantic relationships, friendships, work. Um, Even did you sacrifice yourself as a child? We're just going to go deeper into that and what that looks like and ways to make changes.
Yeah, so as Nick said, when we're talking about sacrificing self, essentially it's when we are putting other things over the good of our own mental health. And this, of course, causes issues later on. We're going to first talk about childhood, as Nick talked about. With this is really talking about more so sacrificing yourself for your parents. And not necessarily for your parents, but for some of us, like maybe there's a certain image your parents wanted you to live up to. And you're like, okay, I won't be my authentic self because I want to live up to my parents' expectation. I don't want to let them down. This can also be the same thing with siblings. Um, there are times with certain people, they are like, no, I am going to be like the mother type figure. So I'm not going to go to dance practice. I'm not going to be the one that gets to play soccer because mom works, dad works. Somebody has to make sure she gets to soccer good. Somebody has to make sure the house is clean. Somebody has to make sure there's cooking and stuff. When it comes to childhood stuff, it's really focusing on the family. Did you have to sacrifice yourself? Neek, is this something you experienced?
Um, Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I helped out with my parents because my mom worked at night, and so my dad was the provider, but I helped him um with doing stuff, making sure the girls took a bath, making sure the girls I washed their hair, I put them to sleep, and then I went to sleep. Like I was doing stuff I probably shouldn't had done, but even now that I'm older, I don't really regret it because I'm a family person. I don't regret being there for them, but it
Mm-hmm.
probably wasn't something that needed to be um, put on me, I guess. And also, like as I got older, it was always what would my mom and dad do in this situation instead of what do I want to do in this situation. So it made me not know how to make decisions or choices. It was
Okay.
like, what do you think I should do? I asked, even as I was older, I'll ask them, what do you think I should do? And I think I kind of listened to what they had to say about it, but if I feel that I was able to make my own choices as a child, I probably wouldn't have to rely so much on their um, opinions on things.
Yeah. So do you think like as an adult, you make decision based on how your parents will react? Like, do you ever hold back from doing something you want to do because
I
you're like,
have before.
mm-hmm,
I don't know if I do it as much now. I don't really think about it as much now, but majority of my life, yes. Even 3 years ago, yes. So, but I don't really do it now. So when I realized that it was hindering me and it wasn't really me, I start trying to just think about what I really wanted to do. Or they'll tell me something, and I'm like, oh, that's fine, but that's not what I want to do.
and that's something that's hard. That's like, I know we talk about childhood stuff a lot, and it's not to blame parents because, again, our parents, most of our listeners' parents, came from a generation where they weren't trauma informed. They were like, just do better than our parents did. And then a lot of times our grandparents came from a get the switch type of parenting. That's what they got. So they just did better than
Yeah.
I'm not going
I
to
mean,
make you
I'm
try.
glad I didn't have to get the switch. They ain't
Yeah.
did. I had cousins that did, but yeah.
Yeah. And so each generation was just like, let me just do better than what my parents did. And I think now we're at a generation that's more trauma informed. And even being trauma informed is hard because my daughter been testing me all day. And I have not been acting trauma informed today at all. At all. I have not at all day today. I have been like, you know what? If you have to go to therapy because of today, that's fine. I still need you to sit your behind down and let me work. Um, but I say that to say because our childhood really does set the foundation for a lot of things in our life once we get older. Now, there's things that we can definitely change, but it definitely sets the tone. I feel like in childhood, this is something I definitely did. I was a pastor's kid. So
Yeah.
I definitely, in my childhood, felt like I had to live up to a certain image. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
felt like there were certain things I could not do because if my parents found out, they would be so disappointed in me. Um, that was a huge thing for me. Like even when I went off to college, like my undergrad years was not fun because everything I did, I felt guilty about. And then everything I did, it was just like, what would mom and dad think? Or I don't want this to get back to my parents. And even like I was super religious when I was in undergrad and I was very judgmental. And it was because I was hard on judging myself because I felt like I had to live up to certain standards.
Yeah.
So when I saw other people not living up to them standards, I was just like, she don't respect herself. And then And then I got older and wilded the fuck out for a while. So it came full circle. But it was definitely something that it took me a long time to get out of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it definitely affected a lot of my choices. It affected a lot of my major choices. I would say up until the age of like 24, it really affected my life. Trying to still live up to that image, trying to still focus on who I thought my family wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And I was unhappy. I was like really, really unhappy. And it wasn't, I tell young girls this all the time. I really encourage young girls to learn themselves before they get into anything big, like a permanent decision, whether that be like marriage, whether that be like, a big financial decision like buying a home or whatever. I always believe like wait until you're older. This is not stuff you need to do when you're 21. There's some people who met their soulmate when they were 11, but there is a huge change in most people between the age of 18 and 30.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, you're a completely different person. You went through certain trials that changed you. There's certain things that you did not recognize was unhealthy that you're now like, yo, I don't ever want to be that person again. Yeah. And a lot of times it's because we are still grounded and rooted to our, what we found in our childhood. And then it's in those 20s, those mid to 20s to 30, early 30s that you are like, okay, now really let me explore me. Who am I outside of what I was taught? Who am I organically?
Do that though, because if not, it's just like you really go back. I know for me, I really revert back to who do they want me to be, and I don't like that because I reflect back on a lot of decisions I made, and it wasn't healthy to do that because then not resent them, but I would blame them, and it's really not a need to blame them because you seen what was going on and you need to figure that out as an adult because they only want the best for you as a kid. That's why I don't like resent them. I don't like think negative on it because just like they want the best for me, I want the best for Journey. And some things I might want her to do that she doesn't want to do. But I have to learn to let her make her own decisions now because I don't want her to be in situations that I was in. Yeah. And I ask her, like, when it's time, like, simple things is go pick your clothes out. And whatever she picks out, what she gonna wear. Or what do you want to do today? Like, I ask her, like, I encourage her to be involved in the decision making. Shoot, I don't got a man, so she got to be involved in it. But
that's a whole
all because yeah, it's like it's not like But I asked her how she feels about things because I never got asked. Yeah. So yeah.
No, I definitely understand you. You know, my daughter is a free spirit. And I honestly don't think this is ever going to be a problem for her because she don't care about my feelings. Like, she don't care about my feelings. She don't care about her daddy's feelings. She is very independent. She's very much her own little person. But the same thing, I try to include her. Like right now, I'm looking for a new home, and like me and her were sitting down earlier today when she was calm for those whole 5 seconds, and we were looking at homes on Zillow together. And she was telling, like, I was like, okay, and this would be your room. I don't like that color. We can paint over the color card. Like, we went through that. And like you said, I try to give her more choices. The same thing with clothes. I'm like, okay, what do you want to wear? And the only time I'm like, no, is like, it's 98 degrees here now. And she has this penguin sweater that she got for Christmas that she want to wear every day, all the time. And I'm like, baby, it's 98 degrees. We're not doing this. And she'll pick it out with some like shorts and her little flip flops. And I'm like, no. I don't even care that you want to wear those shorts and flip flops, but it's too hot. When we are like, no, you can't go to Walmart like that because I think what are people going to think of me as a mother? One, people usually ain't think about you. Especially when it comes to kids. They're like, oh, look what the little girl, like they know the little kid.
Especially because she wears her like princess dresses to Walmart and everybody just stops her and says they love it, and she just turns around and poses because she likes it. So I just let her. But yeah, but even like things like when she spilled the milk the other day, and it was all on the wall, all on the everywhere. And I have been a little short, and then so she cried, and then later on I said, love you, and she said, do you love me even if I spill the milk? So I'm seeing that she's doing the same thing I was doing. I don't want her to do that. And I said, Journey, I love you regardless. You can make all the mistakes in the world. I'm still going to love you. I'm never going to stop loving you. Like, you're never going to do anything that makes me stop loving you. I'm always love you. To try to reassure her, be an adult to apologize about being short, because I mean mistakes happen. It's just it can be cleaned up.
I 100% agree. Going back to what you said earlier, like my parents, I have no resentment towards them. They were amazing parents. They were good parents. It's just things that they did that affected me as an adult that they had no idea was going to affect me in that way. I didn't know it was going to affect me that way. The way it affected me did not affect my brothers. You know, they were unaware of, and we are unaware of sometimes how little things that we don't think about affect our children years later. And, again, my parents were great parents, but same thing. Like I had this idea in my head, like I have to perform a certain way for love.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when I got older, I wilded out in like relationships, because I was just like, no, you gonna love me regardless. I'm gonna show you my worst. And if you can't handle, and it was like I was pushing people. I definitely feel like that's something I'm like learning to undo, where I felt the need to push people to prove to me that you still love me regardless of what I do. And I really think that's something that stems from my childhood, because I really believe that I had to perform a certain way for love. What my dad, like one of the things my dad does is, which is what I do, he emotionally shuts down when he's mad or angry. And he would do this to me as a child. Now, I recognize as a child, especially since I do it, it was not him taking away his love from me. It was really just, I'm trying not to snap. You like really bugging right now? And I need to walk away for a second.
Because I don't want to disrespect you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all it was. But for me as a child, you don't understand that. And so growing up, I did, like one of the things I'm working with my therapist is like fear of abandonment. And it stems from that if I don't act a certain way, you're going to take away my love, your love.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of those things as kids, like, and it's one of the things I try to do with my daughter. Like my daughter will make me mad. My daughter, she definitely pushes people to the edge, and I'll get mad, and sometimes I will just be like, go to your room. I'll be mad, and sometimes I'll yell, and then afterwards I have to go back and be like, mommy is sorry. Mommy, this is why mommy yelled. Mommy shouldn't have yelled. And I understand you're frustrated because you're home and you're used to being out and playing. You miss having friends. You miss being at school. And I try to have those talks because I really think if I had those talks when I was a child, I think I would have understand love in a way different way. Speaking of love, okay, have you ever sacrificed yourself or your feelings, your emotions when it came to relationships?
I have like in a relationship, but eventually I would speak up about it. I don't like let it keep going. Because I just feel like, okay, I can't keep doing this, and I speak up about it. But I have like, and then once I learned that me not speaking up about it is only messing things up worse, I stopped doing that and I speak up sooner. It doesn't, because like with one relationship that I really love the person, I don't think I ever said half of the stuff I wanted to say out of, I don't want to talk about a tough situation. And it's that situation. And then when I never got to talk about it, that situation taught me like, no, speak up, because sometimes you might not have a chance to do it again, you know? So I learned to speak up, and I do now. And I don't really hold my tongue anymore. I don't like wasting time. I'm too old now for wasting time. So I speak up a lot.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about this. And I'm going to call you out on that.
Yeah. This was an issue, but I it's something I'm still working through. Not so much the not speaking up part. My problem is I went to the extreme, because I definitely have had relationships with people who, like, I just at the time was like, I'd rather keep the peace. This is not, and I tell myself it's not a big deal. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Just I'd rather keep the peace. I'd rather not get into this. And then later I blow up and they're like, and it's over something small. No, because I've been mad about 8 different things that I do keep it, and you keep trying me. And they're just like, I had no idea you were mad. I didn't know this was a thing. I was dating a person who like used to say things just randomly that would like hurt my feelings. And I would ignore it because I'm like, I told myself this is who they were. And I'm like, no, this is who they are. And I'm not going to try to change who they are. And they really, and I still to this day, they did not mean any harm. They weren't doing it to try to hurt my feelings. They were just a very blunt person. And then I would snap. I would snap at them. And by the time I snapped, they were so confused. And it's like, no, because on top of that, you said this, and that made me think of this, and I'm mad at this, and blah, blah, blah. And they would be sitting there like, from 3 months ago, like, you didn't even say nothing. But in my head, I was just like telling myself, like, you know, it's not worth it. This is who they are, blah, blah, blah. But it built up so much anxiety that when I was finally done, I was really done. Like, I resented them.
And it could have been talked out, though. Yeah. I was in a recent situation like that, and somebody said, well, you said this certain thing, and that hurt me. I said, well, why you didn't just say it at that moment? I said, because if I don't know what was said, I can't defend myself. And I said, and then they were saying that they didn't want to hurt me, so they hold so much stuff in. And I said, but that's hurting you. And we don't have time to be, like, if that's nothing I can change, and it's nothing that, and that's something that really means something to you, you really don't have time to, like, work on it in between time if it's held in.
Yeah.
Because it's hurting everybody, just holding stuff in. Like, it just needed to be come out on the surface.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I was like on the other hand of receiving like what you said that you were doing, and it didn't feel right that way either. So
yeah, I mean, I as of recent, not of recent, this has been a thing, but yeah, now not now because I'm doing better. I will do better whenever I start dating again. But like, I would just walk away and not explain it instead. Like, so it's like, you know, I'm mad because I walked away from you. And I blocked you on everything. And now you realize, now you realize we're not friends on Facebook, Instagram, or all the messages you send to me are now turning green.
Yeah.
But I never really fully said like what was mad, why I was mad, what's going on. But I will say I do have one person in my life who, and it's so funny. It's so funny how life works out. I have one person in my life who I have never done that to. I have always been extremely blunt with him. To the point that sometimes it was low-key mean. But in their relationship has transformed as of recently. And I just mean like platonic relationship. He is one of the people I feel safest around because I've always had that type of relationship with him. And now, that's not always the best either. I had to tone some of that down, not as a way of toning me down, but as a way of like, hey, they also have feelings. Like, even if they don't say nothing, he's still a man. He's still got an ego. He has feelings. And I promise y'all, I'm doing so much better. I really am. I can get him to write a note. Like, now, our friendship is a lot better and it's a lot healthier in a relationship where I can say things to him that I would never say to someone else, and not mean things, Not maintenance, but just stuff that like before I would be like, no, I'm not going to say that out loud because I don't want them to use this against me. And now, like, this person is someone I say whatever's on my mind to. Like, whatever's on my mind, I just let him know. And because he always provided a safe space for me to do that.
Yeah.
Whether he recognizes that or not, like now, because of that, and it's like I get to, this is going to sound horrible, but it's like I get to practice being a healthier person with him because he provides a safe space. And I don't mean practice because on like as if like I'm not really going to be safe with you. You just practice. I'm going to do this for somebody else. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, I am practicing it realistically with him, for him as well, but also, so just going for a period, that's how I am with people. And I think a big part of that is also providing a space where people feel emotionally safe to do that.
Yeah, because if you felt emotionally safe with any of the other people, you would be more vocal.
And that's a two-way thing. Like, you have to create emotional safety. There's some people, they meet each other and it's just automatically there and they sync up and the universe just smiles upon them and they get to be in love and happy and things are great. But for a lot of us, that's something you have to create with the other person. You have to have those conversations created. Yeah. So
even like if people you feel happy and safe with, it's still sometimes it's something you create and grow over time, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, there has been relationships I was very happy in that I still sacrificed my needs in. Because of not feeling like it was a safe space for me to do that. Not in terms of like physical violence or anything like that, but in regards to like emotional safety. Like, if I say this, will we be able to talk about this openly in a way that's therapeutic and not in the relationship, or a way that won't build resentment, or a way that won't be like, oh, she always nagging, or he always nagging, he always tripping. Do we have that? I have been in relationships where I have not felt that. Like, I could do that. And I was happy. So you can have it in happy relationships as well. It's not something that's just purely in toxic relationships. Now, what about family? Has family had an effect on your dating choices? Going back to that, being who your family needed you to be.
If my family didn't like them, it was harder for me to give my all in a relationship, or I would just sneak and talk to them. So, and that wasn't good either, because then they didn't feel loved and they didn't feel appreciated because I'm sneaking, and it's hard to give your all when you're sneaking, especially when you're in high school.
Can I just say, y'all, as a grown woman, also, I was always Neek's excuse when she was sneaking.
No, see, that was not sneaking because they didn't know about him, because they didn't like him. It's because they didn't know about him. Anyways, I didn't want them to know about him until he asked me to be his girlfriend.
Yeah.
So that was that one. But high school, I did because
it was more than that one person, though. There has been times I got text messages like, yo, my mom think I'm with you this weekend. Chill on what you post on Facebook. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, we definitely
because they didn't need to know about it. It was never because they didn't like them. When I was doing that with you, it's because I wasn't ready for them to know where I was going.
I'm not saying because you didn't like them. I'm saying in general. Okay. Like, is there, because of your family, period, has there ever been a time where you kept a certain relationship hidden, but you kept certain things because you're like, I don't want them to look at me this way. I don't want them to think.
Yeah, of course. Or I just wasn't ready to introduce to them. Like, I don't want to say I'm going this place and that place, all these different people. It just wouldn't sit right.
Yeah.
But in actuality, you are allowed to date and you're allowed to talk to different people. But it wasn't nothing I want to explain. With family, like my family, like you're talking to this person, like we meet them. Oh, you're going to get married to them tomorrow. No, I'm not. I'm just starting to figure out what they're about. So it's no reason to meet them. But my grandma will always want to meet them. And some people are just friends. You can't even hardly have guy friends because that's going to be your husband too. Yeah. So, the old school values. But I don't knock it. I guess I know how to operate with it, I guess.
Yeah. I think when I was younger, like real young, like when I was like a teenager to like 20, my parents did find out about one person on accident. And it's literally because my mom had my phone looking at pictures of my daughter. And he sent the text like, "Hey, baby, I miss you." And she was like, "Who is this? How come I don't know about him? He's calling you baby and he's missing you." But for the most part, I don't tell my folks. But with that one specific person, I felt like I had to make up for the fact that the one guy they did meet, I was like 15 years old, and he was on house arrest. So I had to, so I couldn't sneak over. He couldn't sneak over anymore. So I had to tell my parents because he literally could not leave the house, and I needed somebody to drive me to see him. And since that day, my parents are like, think I have horrible taste, and they're just like, "Oh, okay, yeah. She like man on parole." So
That's offensive.
Yeah. So it did for a while, but now it's not a thing at all. But also now I recognize my parents really trust my judgment when it comes to my dating life now. Also, I get such a complete turn on my personality. Like once I hit 25, that my parents are just kind of like, okay, she gonna do what she gonna do, and it's fine. That's just who she is.
Accepted,
yeah. Yeah. Now, what about work? I feel like this is the biggest one. Do you sacrifice your mental health? Do you sacrifice yourself for work? I feel like this is probably the biggest category for most of us.
Definitely do. But it's just like you gotta live. So it's just like until you figure out what other ways you can get money, it's just like something that's unchangeable. But when I do see that my mental health is affected by work, I create my escape plan. I mean, I did before. The only reason I had stayed there at that one time was because I was pregnant. I was already like applying for jobs, and I found out I was pregnant. I was like, well, I gotta work for my baby now. Yeah. I need consistent money.
Yeah. And it's hard to get hired while you're pregnant because nobody wants to hire somebody that's going to immediately go on.
Exactly. And they made it known. And
By the way, guys, that's illegal. People do it all the time. I definitely had an interview before where they're like, "Oh, okay, and you wouldn't need any accommodations?" I was like, "No." And they're like, "Okay, so like, things will be fine for you. You won't really, need to take a lot of days off." And I was like, "No." And they just kept hinting. And then finally like, "Okay, so we're just trying to make sure you're not pregnant. We just hired 2 new women. Both of them were pregnant. And now we have to hire people again because they're going to be on leave." And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm not pregnant, blah, blah, blah." And it wasn't until years later that I found out that was illegal.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I got hired for my second job while I was pregnant. They were upset that I left, but I got my money and got out. But it is what it is. But I have sacrificed. But when I noticed that, I just started to figure out a way out. It's just like, yeah, you can have a talk with them or you can do this or do that. But if things are not changing, it's no use to stay there. Like, you're there more than you're at home with your children. Like, you're there with more than time when you're with your family or your friends or people you actually love. Yeah. So if you're miserable, but it's just unfortunate when it's just like no outlet, because you can apply to millions of jobs, but if nobody gives you a call back, you're stuck.
This is also like choosing your career type of thing as well. Because I feel like I know a lot of people, even now, low-key myself included, who went to school for a certain thing, all their experiences in one certain thing, and now they're no longer passionate about that thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how do I escape now? For 10 years, this is all I did. This is the only thing I got experience in. This is the only thing my education's in.
All that money on it too.
Yeah. I've definitely been in situations where I felt like I was sacrificing myself for a job. I think now is the only time I've ever not left like immediately. But the pandemic also affected that. I have an amazing job and I have an amazing boss. I have some amazing coworkers, but I think I'm just over my field. I think I'm just burnt out. And it's just hard to, one, I know the TV keeps saying that nobody's hiring, nobody is like applying. I mean, not nobody's hiring, no one is applying for these jobs and employers are panicking. But like, also, I know a lot of people who are trying to leave and they're like, I never get a call back from any of these jobs.
Exactly. They trying to say ain't nobody is applying. Y'all not calling nobody back.
Look.
You see all of these people hiring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of my girlfriends, she left the job, same thing, burnt out, hated her job with a passion, and like had a job that was right up her sleeve. So she is in a similar field as me, a very niche section of the field where like it's very specific. Not a lot of people in our field focus on it. So when these jobs come up, when you have experience, you're like, oh, I'm a shoo-in. Because usually nobody else has it. It's like 8 of us. Usually in each area, like in each state or each city is only like 8 of us. And we all know each other. And this happened recently for her. And she never got a call back. And she was like, this is an area where like almost nobody in our field even looks into. And I have 8 years experience in this. And she's like, I have amazing recommendations and blah, blah, blah. And I have 8 years experience in this. And she's like, I have amazing recommendations and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, and they didn't even call me back. And I'm like, girl, they're probably not even really hiring. Because I was like, I feel like everybody I talk to, that's what they're going through. Where they're like, I am applying for these jobs and no one is calling me. And it's not even like no one is like saying, yes, you're hired. They're not even getting a call or email to reject them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I definitely feel this. I feel like I've definitely done this before. With me, my biggest thing is my body reacts to stress. So when I'm stressed, my body I'll break out in hives. I get really sick. Me and you talked about this the other day. There was a job I had when I was like 21, 22. It was an extremely high stressful job that they should not put people that young in. Like that was not a good first job. It had some amazing people, but it was so extremely stressful. And during this period, like I was extremely sick. I was getting shooting pains from my head to my tailbone. And for like a year, that whole year I was working there, I had to go to the doctor like every month to get tests run. They thought I had lupus, but I kept getting tests, and they're like, no, it's not testing for lupus, but that's what my symptoms were mimicking. I had low white blood cells, but not low enough to be lupus, but it was lower than average. It was lower than my regular test. And when your white blood cells, they are the cells that fight off disease and illness. So, I mean, I didn't have low, I had a higher number of white blood cells. Sorry. And when your white blood cell count gets higher, it's because usually your body's trying to fight off something. And for that whole year, they're like, your body is trying to fight off something, but we can't find anything that it should be fighting.
You're just trying to fight off the stress?
I mean, possibly. No one ever said it that way, but that's how I figured it. Because I've noticed anytime I'm in my life, and I've had an extremely stressful period in my life, I've also been very sick. I also had mysterious illnesses that the minute I left went away. Because with that job, the minute I left, I no longer had that. I have not had that pain. I have not had any issues with my white blood cells since then. And now I'm also in a period where I'm getting stressed again, and I'm getting all types of symptoms, and I'm constantly on the phone with my doctor. She's like, yo, what is this? Is this the side effect or something? What's going on? And I think about that a lot. Like, you really sacrificing yourself for this job where you don't feel appreciated, you feel underpaid, and you no longer are in love with.
Yeah.
And like you said, like now I'm just trying to figure out an escape plan that's not going to escape to another situation I actually really don't want.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to be strategic about it.
Yeah. Because sometimes, you jump from the fire into the frying pan.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think if I stay in my field, that's exactly what I would be doing. Because I think the truth of the matter is I just no longer have passion for it. That's fine. Like, it's a great field for people who have passion for it. I had a lot of passion for it for about 7 years. And I fought for that career. I was very passionate. I was at the protest rallies. I was at, joining the associations, the professional associations, all that. But it's just now a point in my life where I'm like, okay, and that part's over. And now it's a new journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's big that when you feel that, recognize that, and listen to your body.
Yeah.
When your body or your mental health is just like, no, we can't do this no more, start figuring out an exit plan.
Yeah, listen, yeah.
Yeah. I know too many people, I feel like definitely in our parents' generation, that like spent 20, 30 years at a job they couldn't freaking stand just to retire and die 5 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you spend most of your life at your job once you become an adult. You spend more time there than anywhere else. And I would hate to know that I spent that much of my life doing something I absolutely hate. And then when I finally have time to do me, it's so short because I don't let stress ruin my health.
Mm-hmm. And you can't even like enjoy,
Yeah. Yeah. That happened to my grandparents. Like, my granddad had multiple jobs. But he was a mailman, and he did not like being a mailman. He didn't like his job, but it was a government job. He had a family. He had a wife that was a homemaker and all that. And like, he did that. He was also a pastor. He did a couple other odd jobs. And then when he retired, like, him and my grandma's whole plan, like, they were really good on budgeting, was to travel around the world. Like, they just wanted to travel, and they got to do that for like 3 years before my grandmother got really sick. And she had a stroke, and it was like, okay, we're going to get better, we're going to get back. And within like 4 years, she had 11 strokes. And I remember sitting and talking to my granddad when I was like a teenager, and him just being like, I really spent most of my life, planning for this part of our life. I was like, this is going to be our time. Our kids going to be at the house. We saved so much, and we're going to do all this fun stuff. And he was like, and now that money's spent on medical bills.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't in the like, oh, she's wasting all my money type of way. It was just him like, dang, I really wasted my life when I could have been having fun then, when we could have been doing good stuff. But I was too busy working 5 jobs because I thought, okay, later, eventually, I'll put it off. I'll eventually do this. I'll eventually get to the stuff I want. All right. So let's talk about, though, how can you start showing up for yourself? How can you stop sacrificing yourself? So one of the biggest ways, one, just general self-love. You have to learn to love yourself. Like, period. I know that sounds so cliche, but like, that's the first step
it's
to
hard
almost everything.
Sometimes. Yeah.
It's the first step to almost everything healthy. You want to lose weight? Start loving yourself. You want to get better at school? You should probably start loving yourself. Like, you want a new car? Let's love ourselves and see what happens. I don't know, but it's usually the first step to most things. And I also find that like, people don't really realize what self-love is. Because you'll say that and everybody's like, no, I do love myself, and I do, that's not a thing. I don't have to work on that. But it's like, do your actions reflect you loving yourself? You might not actively,
others before you is not loving yourself.
Yeah. You might not actively be like, I hate myself, I'm so horrible, but you might sacrifice your health for a job you hate. You might sacrifice your mental health for a relationship that you're not really that happy in, but at least it's somebody. You might sacrifice your physical health at a job that you hate. Like, there's a lot of things we can do where it's like, do I love myself? Because I really don't take care of myself. I really put myself last on the list of things that I prioritize. So what's the next thing, Nick?
Saying nice things to yourself when your mind tells you the opposite. This is hard for me because I have a lot of negative talk about myself, or I guess even not even just like with romantic relationships and relationships in general. I find the fault in things that I do instead of like noticing like, no, but they did this, or not even like blaming them. Just knowing that, like you told me that, like self-preservation, like it was nothing against you. It was just them trying to preserve themselves. And just noticing that everything is not my fault.
Yeah.
But it's something I'm working on because it's hard for me.
You know what? As you were talking, I was just thinking, though, I think it's really big for people who are very independent to have those type of thoughts, because you're so used to everything relies on me. So when things don't go well, when you are unhappy, when things are feeling stressful, it's like, because you're so heavily relying on yourself, it's automatic to be like, and now this is your fault. This is my fault. Why I put myself in this situation? I blah, blah, blah. Because I know with me, that's how I am as well. Like, I'm very hard on myself. I'm probably the hardest person on myself. And I have started doing this probably at the beginning of this year, that whenever I do get thoughts of like, you so stupid, like, why would you do that? Especially when I've been having a thing recently where I keep just remembering stupid stuff that I did randomly while I'm like driving to work, while I'm like reading a book. I'll get mad and I'll get in my feels like, why did you do that? That was so stupid. They probably remember you doing that, and every time I think about it, they're like, she's stupid as fuck. And I have to stop myself. And like, what I've been doing to counteract is, every time I have a negative self thought, I've been training myself to be like, kind of like you, like, you know what? Do not take that personal. That was not something personal against you. They did not do that because you did something. Again, self-preservation. When it's something just myself, like, you didn't know any better. Okay? You was 21. You didn't know no better. Now you do. And, that's life. Let it go. Other people probably don't even remember.
Yeah.
Even things like I'm working on now, like in regards to like therapy, there's certain things that I'm like, you should have this by now. Like, you know how to act, you know how to respond to this. And yet you still do you. And then you get mad later and be like, well, why did I do that? I knew better. And it's just like, okay, well, guess what? You did better than last time. You got up in the middle of the night and walked away from that boy, but you didn't set his apartment on fire. Good for you. But I have to really do that. Like, I have to remind myself, like, okay, but you're doing better. Okay, yes, you're not there yet. Or I have to remind myself, like, okay, this is not something that you apply for that job, nobody called you back. But again, a lot of people are having jobs not called them back.
But you took the step, though.
Yeah. And also tell myself, okay, then that's just not for you. Don't cry over spilled milk. Don't cry over something that's not for you.
Yeah. Because it will happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that also goes into giving yourself compassion. I think that lines up with that, because a lot of times we are really compassionate to other folks. We'll tell our friends, we'll hype our friends up and be like, you're doing so much better. I'm so proud of you. Don't be so hard on yourself, girl. But we won't say that to ourselves. And I think a big part of it is learning to be your own cheerleader. Even though there are some of us that, we cheer ourselves on a little too much. Definitely have met folks that are like, yeah, I'm really amazing. I'm like, really awesome. And I'm like, no. And I have receipts to prove that you're not. And there's definitely those, but there needs to be a nice balance of, but yes, I'm a good person. I'm trying my hardest.
Yeah. But some people get too much grace and you're like, I'm done.
Yeah. I think you should be giving the most grace to yourself.
Yeah.
And your kids. That's in my opinion. Like, it should be to yourself and your kids. Yes, allow grace for other people, but like you said, I definitely have seen situations. It's not my thing. I'm learning to give grace to others. I'm learning to forgive others. But I've definitely seen situations where I'm just like, girl, this is his third baby on you. Like, you at some point.
Yeah, the first one would be enough for me. But
I feel like it's not Jesus telling you to forgive him anymore. Yeah. Like, I don't know who you talking to. And then kind of what we've been talking about since we started the show, learning to feel is a big part of showing up for yourself. Learning to feel your emotions, not repress your emotions.
Yeah.
And just allowing yourself to be honest with yourself about what you're feeling. Because a lot of times when we are sacrificing ourselves, it's because we're shutting down our own emotions for another person, another thing, another situation. And a big part of being able to show up for yourself is recognizing, like, you know what? No, this really hurt my feelings. This really made me sad. And sitting with those feelings and understanding. Now, our emotions, what we feel does not mean it's always true. Like, we can feel
Yeah.
like, oh man, that's hurts my feelings, and they were trying to be mean, and they might not have, and that just could have been your interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying like have your feelings and then be like, yes, let me tell you how mad I am, blah blah blah. But sitting with your feelings and kind of just seeing how, checking in with, okay, how am I feeling? How is that affecting me? Where is this coming from? Is this a valid feeling? Is this a valid thought? And then going from there.
Yeah. And yeah. But sometimes it's hard to, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, sit with your feelings
Oh yeah, yeah,
and try to figure them out. Yeah.
yeah. As you know, like I've been really, this is something I've been practicing for like the last year and a half, and I would like to be able to stop. But I recently got to the point where I felt like I was feeling too much. I was allowing myself to wallow in feelings that kept coming up. Like, okay, we already recognized what this feeling is. We already processed why we feel like that. And we've already processed, like, okay, this is what this thing was. This is how we feel about this thing. This is how we're going to handle this thing going forward. And I have had to shut my feelings down. Not shut them down, but recognize, like, okay, we've already processed this. And so
Mm-hmm.
now we're going to let it go. So you can come to a point where you're like, okay, but I keep feeling the same feeling.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but also at least for me, when I came to that point, it's because I've already did the whole process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to our episode last week. Like, at some point that you can't just allow yourself to like wallow in a pity party.
Yeah, you
When all
gotta
you
keep
do
it
is
moving. Yeah.
sit there and feel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, allow yourself to feel those feelings, and really explore what they are. Because again, it's usually you shutting down your feelings is how you get to the place of sacrificing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then also being clear on what you want, not only from a situation, but what you want for yourself. I think having that up front of saying, okay, I want a job where I'm able to still spend time with my child every
Yeah.
night. I'm not coming home late. I'm not stressing over the weekend. I'm able to take her to the park and I'm able to leave my job at home. Or I
Mm-hmm.
want a job where it's enough money for me and my household just from that one job. I don't want to feel the need to work multiple jobs to take care of my family.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the same thing with relationships, starting off from the beginning, like, okay, I want a relationship where I feel emotionally safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like when I feel like this with so many things, when you know what you want going into something, it's so much easier to be like, this isn't what I want. It's a lot easier to filter the bullshit before it even comes.
Mm-hmm. This is not it. Like, this isn't what I said or what I want for myself. It should be easier to just let that go. It's
Yeah.
hard sometimes when you
Yeah.
expect it more or wanted something different, but you gotta understand.
Yeah.
It's only wasting time and hurting you in the long run.
I agree. Also, a big part is trusting yourself, trusting your intuition. I feel like when you deny yourself so much and you, especially like with family, you have family be a big part of how you think or how way you do stuff, it kind of like diminishes your own belief in your intuition.
Yeah.
And you have to build that back up. I know there's people like, no, for real, like my intuition's bullshit. It always get me some bullshit. But I think even with the people who are thinking like that, a lot of times I don't think that is your intuition. A lot of times I think you're having influence based on other things, based on other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because even people, like I have worked with people who are like, no, my whole life I've been a screw up and I blah, blah, blah. And then when we really sat and explored it, it was like, no, you weren't a screw up. You taught that it was okay for a man to talk to you that way. You were taught that love, when a man really loves you, he puts his hands on you. Something you learned.
Mm-hmm.
And even with other things, like you saw your dad drink all the time after he came home and he worked a stressful job, and that's what a man does. So that's what you think a man is supposed to do. And no, that's not your intuition. That's something you learned growing up. And so you have set in your mind like this is normal. But your intuition is that part of you that kicks in when you're like, yes, no, this is wrong. I don't
listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'm supposed to drink half a bottle every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think my job is supposed to make me feel that way. And other things. And I think it's really hard because even though we hear it a lot on like TV shows and podcasts, and our therapist tells us, a lot of times I feel like society actually sets us up not to trust our intuition. It really feels like society sets us up to follow rules. Like we have all these rules on like you're supposed to go to college. You're supposed to have a good job. You're supposed to talk this way. You are, especially that girl. Oh gosh, I don't want to pronounce her name wrong. The runner, is it Sha'Carri, who just recently won a spot in the Olympics?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce her name though.
I sincerely apologize. I have a name that I personally don't believe is complicated, but people butcher all the time. I do apologize. This is why we both have nicknames. I do apologize to her. But with her, like, especially I feel like when it becomes to women of color, whether it be Black women, Hispanic women, Indian women, Asian women, there is like a certain way that we are expected to be unless we want to be labeled a certain way. Because like with her, I saw a lot of memes and posts on social media that was like, yeah, show up for Black girls who have long nails, that have colorful hair, and do not speak with slang too. You don't also have we don't always have to be Clara Huxtable. That's not the only type of Black women we need to support and be like, this is the type of Black woman we only want to see on TV. We're tired of seeing Black women like this. No, show up for all of them. Because the truth of the matter is, I had a conversation. I remember when the movie Girls Trip came out, and I don't know if you recall this, but like there was a lot of conversation around Tiffany Haddish. Is it Haddish?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people like, yeah, and I'm tired of them, putting Black girls in the movies, being hypersexual and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, they also had a variety of women. They had Jada in there who was like quiet as kept. And
wholesome, yeah,
who was very wholesome. They had another Black woman who was in there. Was that Regina Hall? Who was very successful, who was about her business, blah, blah, blah. They showed a lot of.
They really showed every type of woman, like, and it is some women like Tiffany Haddish, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's just like, yeah.
It's like and even I caught myself doing this. Like, there definitely are times where I caught myself do this. Oh my gosh! Every time Sweetie comes up, I have to remind myself. I don't know why that girl irks me so bad, but I have to remind myself, like, you know what? But guess what? She's also a type of woman of color that should be celebrated. That she also represents. She's a representation for some little girl out there that's like, yes, that she reminds me of me, and she was able to get out there and be successful. She reminds me of me, and she was able to accomplish her goals. And I think all of us need that. We all need to see our representation. We all need to understand, like, not everybody has to be Claire Huxtable. Okay. Yeah. It's okay for us to have a Shaniqua on there, because guess what? There are Shaniquas in the community. And one thing I really have an issue with is, like, people want the ghetto girl from high school. Like, they clap when she, gets a little secretary job making $30,000 a year. They're like, yes, girl, because I didn't expect you to do that. But then when she goes on to become like Cardi B, now all of a sudden they got an issue.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want to keep them in a certain place because of the way they dress, because of how they talk. But also to have your own place. I feel like I got off subject. I don't even remember what we were talking about. I feel like we were talking about intuition. It has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but it's self-love. It has something to do with self-love.
Okay.
Because even if they're that way, they need to still love themselves. And this is me, and I don't have to. Yeah.
And it's like, no. Because she tried to, she wanted to go hiking, and she kept looking at knees or whatever. And none of the people were Black, none of the people were Hispanic, none of the people were Asian, none of the people were biracial, none of that. And she went on a couple groups, and like people wouldn't talk to her, or people was just like, they'll all be walking, and they'd be like, yeah, I love Future. She was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
What I gotta do? So anyways, she just felt uncomfortable with the groups she was finding. And so she started one. And she invited me to go, and I only went to support her. Like, I really didn't want to go. Like, I remember waking up that morning and being like, what excuse can I use to not support my friend without sounding like a bad friend? And I ended up going and really loved it. Like, I'm finding out that as much as I think I hate nature, I actually really like nature.
You love to be. Yeah, you used to ride bikes when we were in UC too.
So. Yeah, I used to ride it along the Ohio River.
Mm-hmm.
And I just forgot how much I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now because I be cycling and when I go to the gym and it's not as fun at all.
Yeah.
But when you have a view and you feel the air against your skin, like it's and you have great music or a great podcast, it's actually like really good. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things I found out. Like being in nature is
I think I'm
actually.
the same. Like, just like going on the beach and just listening to the
Mm-hmm.
waves. Just the beach is so calming.
Yeah. And
Or
you
music
actually got to do
also.
that for your birthday this year too, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. I went to the beach and I got to like, but I wanted to stay there longer. I didn't get as much time, and I got to
Yeah.
like do a boat ride, and that was relaxing too. Just hear the waves and drink my little drink, sit there, chill.
Mm-hmm.
Also like to like do stuff at home. I like to walk and listen to music.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that relaxes me, but it really relaxes me. Just
Yeah.
like walking and just listening to music or listen to meditations.
Like that. Good job. High five. High five. A+ for you. Um Lastly, it's making me time, which I think is probably the hardest. Because a lot of times when we say self-care, we think of, and me and you have talked about this before. I went to a conference once and they were talking about self-care and everybody had to go around the room and say like how they did self-care. And every woman in the room said getting their nails done. And I ended up saying getting my nails done. And then I was like, and I do, I get my nails done every other week. And I then later sat and was like, I don't even like getting my nails done. I do it for presentation. Like I do it because I talk a lot with my hands. I'm in court. I'm in big meetings. I'm in all this stuff. And so I want when people look at my hands, them to look presentable and nice. But it's not me time because I don't even like it. Like I hate it. I'm like, please stop talking to me. If I will pay you extra, if you could just get this done in under an hour, that would be great. So it's like getting your me time and making sure it's actually me time. Like just because you have that hour without your child does not make it me time. Did you actually relax? Did you actually enjoy it? Did yourself feel refreshed after you had it done?
Afterwards, and I don't feel refreshed. I mean, I feel a little refreshed after I get my pedicure, but sitting there and getting my nails done is not. It's not fun. Neither is getting my hair done. But I just feel better afterwards.
Oh my gosh, I can't tell you. I was looking at a box braid wig because you look so pretty with your box braids. I hate how I look in braids, but I always try. Like every once a year, I try anyway. Like maybe your face look different now. And I was looking at a box braids wig because I was like, I really don't feel like sitting under. I don't feel like sitting for 8 hours for somebody to braid my whole hair.
Yeah. Especially if you don't even know if you're really gonna like it.
Yeah, and I was up on YouTube like, do lace front wigs look real? Oh no, they don't. Okay, all right. Like, I was like, okay, maybe crochet braids. I don't know. Like I was googling because I was like, I want to do it so I can start worrying.
Crochets is way faster.
It seems like it. It definitely seems like it. But also, it's one of those things that you have to find people that know how to do it. Because I also googled that and YouTube also showed me like, yeah, once you take off the filter, some of those don't look good either. I'm like, oh, damn it. But yeah, going back to doing things that you actually like. And just because it's like, okay, I'm not with my kids or I'm not with my husband and I get to be by myself, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like one of the things I found out was self-care for me was riding bikes. I really like to ride the bike. And like on my birthday, I went on vacation and I went to the beach by myself and I rented this amazing Airbnb that was like that bed was like a swing. They had their own pier out on the beach and it was beautiful. But I did all this stuff and I was like, okay, cool. And they had this bike rental there and it was like 3 hours free. And I was like, cool. And that was the funnest part of my trip was me riding the bike along the beach with my music on, with my headsets on. Like that was the most.
And you could ride it for 3 hours?
Yeah, girl, I made it 30 minutes, but you could ride it for 3 hours. this is a place. So I went on vacation, the same place me and Neek vacationed earlier this year because I loved it so much. Yeah, remember like when we were like first got on the main road and we're like, okay, we got to be close, and we kept seeing all those like crab shack places.
Mm-hmm.
And we was like, oh, we gotta have to get crabs here. Yeah, I rode from like where we first were at the beach all the way down there, and then I just turned
Okay.
around and came back. Yeah, I was, girl.
You rode on like the actual beach or like the side part?
The side road. The
Okay.
side road. Yeah, but the beach was right there. I could see it.
Yeah,
and I could still hear the waves and everything. But yeah, no, those last 10 minutes though was not relaxing. But up until that point, I was like, I love this. This is so like I felt so great. And it's the same thing when the last time I went hiking. Like I did it because my friend wanted me to. She
never really have the time to just sit there and think.
Yeah.
So.
One thing I would really encourage everybody to do is try to get out your comfort zone of what you think your self-care is for you, and try new things, because it will surprise you. I know last year, right before Corona hit, and I even did a little bit during Corona because, again, I ended up doing nature stuff, so that stuff was still open. But I would go on every other week. I would go on Groupon, and I would go to their like experiences or activities page, and every other week I was trying something new that I've never tried before. Sometimes I would do it with another person. Sometimes I would do it by myself. And I got to learn a lot of things that I never knew I liked. I never knew I was really into. Like, I also love wine, paint and sip classes. And you know what's actually odd? What I found out, I didn't find out this year. This I found out like 3 years ago. But I do not like the nude paints and sips. And I actually feel really, really uncomfortable when someone is naked in front of me around a lot of other people. So me and one of my girlfriends, she lives in Miami. She came up to Atlanta, and at the time Atlanta was having these like all the time. You could find multiple different groups that were having nude paint and sips, and they would have a new model, usually a man with a ginormous porn star member, and you would have to pay him. And let me just be very clear, it wasn't like a sophisticated like, okay, I'm gonna do this sketch, because you only had an hour. And you have to bring your wine. But also, like, the paint they got us was from, like, the dollar store. It only had, like, green, blue, and red. And then you got to mix colors together to make your own.
Okay, yeah. And how much was this? Like...
It was like $25. But my girlfriend had a ball. Like, so afterwards you could take pictures with the model, and he would be fully naked. You could take pictures with the model. That's one of the things I found out. I like paint and sips, but I do not. I feel very uncomfortable. He would come around and he would talk to people, and he was very personable. Also, I think he was working on tips.
Yeah.
I remember he came by to me to talk to me. I just would not look at him. I was like, okay. And I was scared. I was like, yeah, I'm doing fine. Yeah, yep. If you
I wanted to try that though. I still wanted to try it, but yeah.
I mean, no, definitely try it because you might like it. But, and this is the funny thing, because usually I'm more, when it comes to like sexual stuff, I'm more like, yes, let's try it. Let's, adventurous. I'm all for like sexuality. And you are a lot more conservative, but I can definitely see you liking it. And it's weird because I do not. It made me so uncomfortable.
I don't think it would be funny to me, because I mean, I've been to a male review and I don't really like those. It doesn't turn me on. It doesn't do anything for me.
I got invited to,
but some women get so excited, and that doesn't do it. I crack up. Like, it's just hilarious to me. Like, really, this is not a turn on. You picking up some money with your butt out loud.
It's the same thing though, even with female strip clubs. Like, I'm in Atlanta, and it's like normal for girls to go to strip clubs with their dude. It's like a thing. It's like a date night. And like, I've been to a strip club twice in my life, and I did not like it both times. And it wasn't anything against the girls. It was just weird to me to be with other people while someone is naked in sexual situations. I am not into. I'm not into group work.
Yeah. I've been to a woman, a regular strip club too.
Yeah, I was thinking the guys I was with, because I was with my best friend and her friends from college, and a big part of her friend group were males, and we were all together, and I was making the guys so mad because I was up here talking to the girl like, that is a beautiful belly button ring. Oh, girl, I got that from Claire's. The Claire's at the mall. Yeah, girl, like that was what I was doing, and they're like, if you could just let her give me this lap dance.
Right.
Actually, all the girls end up doing that. We had one girl who was a thicker woman, but she was so freaking gorgeous, and her body was just so gorgeous, and we was just like, oh my gosh, you look so pretty. And I just, girl, where did you find this lingerie? Because and the guys were just again annoyed, like, y'all ruined this for us. Y'all ruined it for us. Anyways, self-care. Find out what's real self-care for you. Try different things. Don't just stick to the mold. You'll be surprised. I had a friend who picked up, like, she wanted to learn how to do nails just randomly. She saw a kit on like YouTube. I was like, I can do that. And like now she's opened her nail business. Like she ended up loving it, went to school for it, and like she's now opening up her nail business in Ohio.
That's good.
Yeah. So try different things.
You just can find different things, yeah.
Yeah. So that wraps up our conversation for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hope this recording came out great, guys. We have been trying different. We're trying. I promise we are trying. We done tried different mics. We done try. The biggest thing is we are remote. We are very far away from each other. Also, one or both of our houses are possibly haunted. So this is really interfering with us. But we have been trying multiple things. We've been trying multiple platforms. We have went up on expensive mics. Everything that we can do, and hopefully this came out really good. And we'll see. If not, we'll try something else again next.
Figure it out.
Yeah. All right, everybody, have a good week, and we will see you next Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.